Hello to all my fans and friends, I'm the Pyjama Critic, and since no legendary figures have asked me to be their new trophy wife, possibly only because I'm already married, I'm here in the Slumber Lounge talking about movies. As the big day draws ever nearer, it is rather expected of me to cover more seasonal movies, and luckily I don't have to look far, because I have covered one of the few Christmas movies to spawn sequels. As I've said before, I appreciate a good sequel when it works on the world built in the original movie and finds new direction to take the characters and mythos. This movie certainly manages that, as we are introduced to a wider world as well as finding new challenges for our main character, so cozy up with a warm cocoa and some warmer slippers as we take far too close to look at the Santa Claus 2, The Mrs. Claus. Released in 2002, directed by Michael Lembeck, starring Tim Allen, Elizabeth Mitchell and Eric Lloyd, as well as many of the old cast returning in smaller roles, the film tells of Santa Claus finding out with very little notice that he must get married soon or lose his Santa magic forever, subsequently seeking a whirlwind romance, all while trying to fix his strained relationship with his teenage son. We're first taken to the North Pole, where the factory is running smoothly. You know, every time I see Santa's workshop, the elves are making wooden trains, but I've never known a single kid to get one. Same story with the rocking horses. Santa, played again by Tim Allen, and Bernard, again played by David Krumholtz, are overseeing a stealth operation that allows the factory to shut down its silence and hide from passing aircraft, which they do with only a minor glitch.
Find out where that music's coming from.
Okay.
What now? It's just gone.
Oh, in the middle of the chorus. This sequence serves mainly to introduce a few concepts that will come into play later in the movie.
You know, I didn't break any of the rules. According to the Santa Handbook.
The handbook.
Curtis, do you go pee-pee with that thing?
The Santa Handbook is the official set of rules all elves should know, but that have curved and been reinterpreted over the centuries. Also, this trainee reindeer, who is going to need a lot more practice. And finally, Bernard and his assistant Curtis have some bad news for Santa, but are nervous about telling him because things have been running so well these last 8 years.
Curtis, when are you going to tell him?
Not now.
Nobody actually says it in the movie, but the trailer and DVD box both made the claim that the elves consider Scots the best Santa yet. Really, that's quite a boast. The earliest recorded celebrations of Christmas were 1700 years ago, and St Nick himself arrived on the scene very early on. If some Santas only rode out for a couple of years before meeting an accident, while others worked a full mortal life until retirement, then there must have been at least 50, possibly close to 100 people in the job in that time. This guy must have done something super impressive in his first 8 years. Back in Chicago, we're reintroduced to Charlie, again played by Eric Lloyd, and his girlfriend Danielle, played by Alexandra Purvis. She doesn't get much of a role and is mainly just referenced after this scene.
My parents are divorced too, and it's no big deal.
I'm not embarrassed.
And why don't you ever talk about your dad?
He doesn't like me to, okay? It's complicated.
What, does he aspire or something?
No,
Before he was Santa, he was a marketing executive for a toy business. You could just say he still does that. You even have the excuse for never seeing him because you could say he lives in another state and is always too busy. We are showing Charlie has grown into quite the delinquent vandal, motivated in part by his frustration at having to keep the secret of his father's job. A routine vandalism at his school is interrupted by his principal, who proved my theory laid out in my Scream video that they all live in their schools. This is Principal Carol Newman, played by Elizabeth Mitchell. We'll see more of her later. Meanwhile, all is fun and games at the North Pole as Santa runs an efficient but overall jolly operation. His only one concern, that he seems to be losing a lot of weight lately, but his elves have managed to catch up with him to bring him the bad news.
It's Charlie.
Sheen? I thought he straightened out.
Not that Charlie.
Oh boy, in 2002 you didn't know the quarter of it. His son is on the naughty list, but that's not the bombshell Bernard has been trying to drop on him.
Santa, there's a Claus.
Yeah, that would be me.
No, I mean there's another Santa Claus.
Matrimony? I gotta get married. Yes, it's the Mrs. Claus.
So there was a second clause in the Santa contract that apparently all the elves had forgotten about. Maybe all the other Santas these last couple of centuries were married already, or got married soon enough that it never came up, or maybe many of them didn't last long enough for this clause to come into effect. In any case, the elves taking so long to remember this clause, meaning the deadline is upon them.
28 days. So I've gotta find a wife by Christmas.
Actually, Christmas Eve.
I do have so many questions about this. The clause states he has to marry a woman, so if Santa was gay, would it have to be a sham marriage? If a woman put the suit on, would she have to become a political lesbian? Heck, maybe she would have turned into a man when she first became Santa, causing even more problems. Just like with the first set of rules, they're not very well thought out, but we just have to hope our kids don't ask many questions. The next addition to the world building is we see Santa as part of a council of legendary figures, chaired by Mother Nature, played by Aisha Taylor. She appears to be God in this universe, but Mother Nature is very much a pagan concept. Wonder how she feels about having figures born out of Christian holidays on her council. Her second in command is Father Time, and other members include Easter Bunny and Cupid. We also have the Tooth Fairy, who provides much of the best comedy in this movie, and the Sandman, who, in accordance with the laws of universal humour, sleeps through the meeting. I do have to pause to ask if these figures are all subject to the same laws as Santa. Like, is there a new Tooth Fairy every few years after the old one flies in front of a truck and some hobo finds and puts on his jumpsuit? It can't just be Santa who is subject to changing face frequently. I think Mother Nature and Father Time are the only ancient immortals, and that's why they run things. During this meeting, Santa reveals he has to get back to see his son and try and find a wife. However, the workshop still needs running, and Curtis, ever the tech elf, has an innovative solution.
But this be a very special toy.
How's that, Curtis?
Okay, I added a fuzzy logic circuit to the pantograph. The duplicate will look and think just like you.
Ho, ho, ho. Oh, oh, oh. Not bad. Not bad yourself.
Bernard has run the workshop in Santa's absence before. He certainly could do that, and there's no reason not to just tell the elves the truth. Of course, that wouldn't be as funny as creating this duplicate Santa to fill in. Bernard sends Santa on his way with a means of measuring his remaining magic and a warning not to let it drop so low as he can't change back, and it's on to Charlie's high school, where Santa, already looking more like plain old Scott, reunites with Laura and Neil, played by Wendy Crewson and Judge Reinhold. Neil seems to have become more in touch with his inner child now he personally knows the real Santa, but he's still a more serious parent, at least according to
Principal Newman.
Yeah, I haven't seen you since the last time Charlie was in trouble.
Well, I've been traveling for work, you know.
Oh, well, maybe if you spent more time with your son, there would be fewer problems.
Also, he's not the primary parent, he just has visits. That's how divorce works. So Santa Scott clashes with Principal Newman over their views on child discipline and Christmas cheer. Obviously these two can never see eye to eye, and the principal is just too uptight and lacking in Christmas spirit for Santa to, yeah, she's going to end up the new Mrs. Claus, we all know how this works. However, movie etiquette dictates we have to let them rage at each other for some time before succumbing to their inevitable attraction. While Santa is dealing with his two tasks at home, his toy stand-in at the North Pole is learning all the rules that he plans to follow to the letter, as Bernard and Curtis are sure this will make him a better Santa. This movie does sometimes suffer from oversaturation of storylines. We have 3 plot threads at this point, although the first 2 that concern Santa are in Chicago are somewhat entwined, with this toy Santa in the workshop serving as a subplot. Toy Santa is learning how to act more human. He could be more convincing, provided nobody looks at him or listens to what he's saying.
Let me get this straight. You are desantifying? And you only have 27 days to find a wife or you're out?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the real Santa lays the truth about what is happening to him on Laura and Neil. While his beard shrinks away, turning him momentarily into John Candy, we're introduced to another character who can provide yet another subplot. Laura and Neil have had a daughter since the last movie, Liliana, played by Lucy Miller in her feature film debut. She gets on well with her Uncle Scott, suspecting him to be Santa Claus, but her parents have decided not to let on until they're sure she's old enough to be trusted with the secret, presumably fearing a repeat of Charlie's behaviour in the first movie. An attempt to set Santa up on a date provides us with a cameo from Molly Shannon. In theory, being a Christmas fanatic would make her an ideal match for Santa, but it seems that's not going to work because...
Fill up a stocking, a spray on some flocking, put up a tree, sports on TV. Man, I feel like some Christmas.
Well, just because. At the same time, things start to look less positive in the North Pole as Toy Santa is taking charge and starting to run a tighter ship with less play and more autocracy on his part.
That's not how it works!
Get me the naughty nice list. Get me every list. Get me everything.
The rapid switching of narratives here keeps the story fresh for kids, even if it doesn't allow parents to catch a breath. The next few scenes can be summed up as Toy Santa takes a zero-tolerance policy on children being childish, meaning everybody ends up on his naughty list as he appoints himself general of the toy factory. Meanwhile, the real Santa reaches the end of his rope with Charlie's misbehaviour and falls in with Principal Carol in punishing him, causing them to bond over their shared goal.
How do you do it? I have trouble with one. You take care of hundreds.
Hi.
Hi.
This scene with the child recognising him as Santa rather takes us out of the moment and does leave me questioning why the mother just accepts it when he doesn't actually look like Santa at present. When he's fat with a beard, it makes sense that parents just think he's a nice old man playing along, but here, Mummy, I want to tell that middle-aged man in an ugly sweater how good I've been. Well, if you insist, dear. As the mutual attraction grows between Santa and Carol, he makes the efforts to speed things up that comes at the expense of a lot of his remaining magic, as he woos her with a sleigh ride in the snow and livens up her school staff party with toys and games that reawaken everybody's inner child. It has the intended effect. Now that was just a waste of magic. The kiss was happening anyway. Toy Santa has taken full control now as he makes himself some reinforcements to implement the final solution to see to it that no child has a good Christmas this year. Despite their truly magical date, Carol still isn't willing to believe her boyfriend is Santa Claus, and things between them are cut short, leading us onto the blow-up from Charlie we have been anticipating all movie.
What? Talk to me.
Okay, I don't live a normal life.
You live a great life
No,
here.
just listen to me. My dad is the best thing of all, and I can't tell anyone about it. And you have no idea how hard that is, walking around that secret for all these years.
This moment would have carried more weight if we had seen more of Santa trying to connect with Charlie up until this point, but unfortunately that story has been sidelined up until this point in favour of Santa's fledgling relationship with Carol and the Toy Santa's militant takeover of the North Pole. We get a rare breather moment here as we slow down a bit and have some scenes with Santa and Lucy as she continues to struggle to understand why her Uncle Scott has got a pet reindeer or why his friend from work is the little man with pointy ears. However, Curtis has come to Chicago to let Santa know that there is something very rotten in the state of the Arctic region.
The Toy Santa's gone completely out of control. He's locked up the elves, shut down the workshop, he thinks everybody's naughty, and he's gonna give the whole world coal!
However, with no magic to spare and Lucy having fed the reindeer a few too many sugary treats, Santa cannot see how he can reach the North Pole. I, however, can see clearly that I can and have reached the spoiler section of this review. I'm going to talk about the ending of this movie, so if you're lucky enough not to have kids, then you won't have been made to sit through this movie and may not have seen it yet. If you would like to have a chance to watch it before knowing how it ends, then skip to this timecode. For the rest of you, Santa has the idea of catching a ride to the North Pole with the Tooth Fairy, which means losing a tooth first. Cue this slapstick routine of Curtis and Neil trying to help yank his tooth out.
1, 2, 3!
That doesn't work, but Lucy has a milk tooth ex machina and that plan is complete. Next morning, Charlie approaches Principal Carol and uses his snow globe to convince her that his dad really is Santa. It is so easy to get people to believe in these movies. The world should be flooded with solstice spirit. Santa arrives back at the North Pole and Curtis, they get instantly captured, but Charlie and Carol show up having had the same tooth extraction plan as Santa. I'm not just rambling through this, the climax of this movie really does run that fast, as if the movie noticed the clock is ticking so had to push through the ending and find a way for all the subplots to tie together. Tooth Fairy, having done his part, makes his exit, being too excited to hide the wire as he flies away. Toy Santa was already departed, but who did we see earlier who can also fly after a fashion?
No.
Don't worry.
After some quite impressive puppetry on Comet earlier, this animation is a letdown. The final confrontations go as expected. The elves tackle the toy soldiers in a battle that would fit well in WWE Hardcore Division circa early 2000s, and the Santas meet in an airborne slugfest with all the expected cartoon bonks and boings. So Toy Santa gets turned back into a miniature and all is well except...
But Santa, aren't you forgetting something? No, you gotta get married.
Remember, main plot of this movie that hasn't been mentioned since the end of the second act?
Yes, I was looking for a wife. No, I didn't figure on falling in love.
You love me? This is all happening so fast.
You don't have to tell any of us twice. The next few minutes contain an entire romantic comedy. Carol finds out Santa's true motives for wanting to date her, Santa professes his love, he proposes, Carol accepts that she will have to leave her old life behind, and they are handfasted by the ultimate celebrant.
I now pronounce you Santa and Mrs. Claus.
Well, Mrs. Claus, you might want to get some rest. You see, tomorrow begins vacation season for me, which means a 3-month honeymoon for us.
Well, some of that honeymoon period may have to be spent working her notice at the school, which for a principal is usually until the end of the term, so governing body can find a replacement. Charlie gets taken home and shows Lucy the truth about her Uncle Scott, and she is delighted to find out she never has to stop believing in Santa. Finally, we are treated with some post-credits fun, including Tracy from earlier showing she's as enthusiastic about the season as ever, and Toy Santa being doomed to live out the rest of his days as a fully self-aware miniature dancing decoration. A pretty nasty punishment really, considering he was just following his pre-programmed instincts. So that was the Santa Claus 2, and it's almost as mediocre as the first movie. All the same old plot holes are there, but just like the first movie, Rule of Children's Fun excuses it there. Many of the performances are an improvement on the last time. Tim Allen in particular shows his prowess both as Santa and Toy Santa. Eric Lloyd has grown up and adapted into adolescent roles better than child actors usually manage. The plot does feel a little cramped, with so much being shoved in throughout that major storylines that deserve more airtime get left out for much of the movie, and it all ends up being rushed at the end. The extended world building and character development of some of the minor characters is effective and is enough to keep us engaged. Overall, fans of the first movie didn't like this on its initial release because 8 years had passed and they'd all grown up, but now they can be watched closer together. Generally, any kids who like the first movie will get on well with this one, and though I say it doesn't quite live up to the first movie, the difference is so negligible I am still able to award the Santa Claus 2 a solid 2 slippers. Thank you for watching. Remember, I would like to be as well known as this big guy one day, and the way that is achieved is by helpful people like you sprinkling your fairy dust on that like button, leaving comments, perhaps letting us know your plans for this solstice season, share this video with all you think will like it and everybody you don't think will like it, just in case they decide they do, and subscribe if you haven't already for new reviews in your subs folder every Friday. I've been the Pyjama Critic, and remember, if there is a clause in your boss's contract that he has 8 years to fill, then 7 years and 11 months later is leaving a bit too late to tell him.
Oh dear, the desanitification process has begun!